First World War causes: economic imperialism, aggressive nationalism, competitive militarism, two rival system of alliances, resultant tension, rivalries and conflict, and the imperialist ambitions of Germany. First one is economic imperialism. Throughout the 19th century, the world history witnessed an unending struggle for raw materials, markets, fields, and investments of surplus capital and settlements. During the last quarter of 19th and early 20th century, this struggle reached to its peak. The underlying principle of this struggle lay in the doctrine of mercantilism. That is, the size of the world resources is very limited, therefore larger the share of one country, more power to it, as it would leave lesser for other countries. Second is aggressive nationalism. Linked to the issue of economic imperialism was prevalent of radical nationalism in leading European countries, more particularly since the French Revolution. It was this nationalistic upsurge which manifests itself periodically in the form of 1830 Revolution, Revolution of 1848, and the unification of Italy and Germany. On the verge of the First World War, the issue of Balkan state had also flared up. Intense nationalistic sentiment across Balkan state. Aggressive nationalism put European countries not only in race for the highest or largest overseas gain, but also instilled psychologically a temperament to put one's own country much higher than the other. When this temperament became a common feature across leading European nations, it could have only created tensions and conflicts. Lord Acton therefore called nationalism as an absurd and criminal principle. Competitive militarism. In conjunction with economic imperialism, aggressive nationalism, the other contributing factor for this war was competitive militarism. Relatively, a more developed, advanced, and powerful military would help a European country to establish its decisive advantage over all other countries. Therefore, the period saw intense military rivalries. Germany made huge addition to its standing army. France enhanced the compulsory military conscription from 2 to 3 years. Great Britain worked to add more to its already powerful navy, and similar plans were undertaken by Russia. Similar race was seen in the field of armament, as the war saw use of brand new and more lethal weapons of war, for example submarines, poisonous gases, liquid fire, dirigible balloons, zeppelins, armored cars, apart from conventional cannons and tanks. Two rival camps. On the verge of the First World War, Europe was divided into two rival camps. One was called Triple Alliance, which had members like Germany, Austria, Italy, which was opposed to another alliance comprised of England, France, and Russia. Outside these camps, France and Russia had also entered into dual alliance. The Triple Alliance was also called the Central Power, where the Triple Entente was called an Allied Power. In the course of the war, some European countries joined the war. For example, Turkey sided with Triple Alliance, Romania, which declared war on Austria. Italy changed its alliance in middle of the war and joined Triple Entente in a wish to recover some of its provinces lost to Austria. At the end of this war in 1918, America joined the war effort of Triple Entente in protest against excessive use of submarines as a major violation of international law. Resultant tension, rivalries, and conflicts. The existence of rival alliances in Europe created an atmosphere of mutual suspicion, distrust, jealousy, rivalry. Not that each country remained very powerful over the activities of countries of rival group, but also even a minor incident developed tendencies to become complicated. Between 1907 and 14, the rival groups confronted each other and took sides. For example, Germany was outplayed by France and Great Britain in Second Moroccan War, which was perceived humiliating for the later countries. On the other hand, in Balkan crisis, that is 1912 and 13, it was the vice versa, that is the combination of Austria and Germany outclassing Russia, a member of the Triple Entente. The imperialist ambitions of Germany, much unlike the other leading European nations, jumped into the fray of colonization, searched for raw materials and markets at the much later stage. Therefore, it exhibited the most desperate desire to achieve the maximum in minimum period of time in terms of colonial possessions. It is this unsatisfied imperialist ambition of Germany which became one of the important factors for international conflicts leading to the First World War. Immediate cause. The forceful annexation by Austria of the two provinces of Bosnia and Herzegovina had led to an emergence of strong anti-Austrian sentiments in the Balkan state. Many secret societies came to be formed, and in Serbia also massive anti-Austrian propaganda was going on. It is in this background that the Austrian Crown Prince Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated at the place called Sarajevo by a Serb student who was the member of one of the secret society called the Black Hand. While this incident came to be criticized by all leading powers of state of Europe, Austria acted in haste, sent an ultimatum to the Serbian government to accept the state's responsibility of this crime and to fulfill many of the Austrian terms and conditions, including monetary and territorial compensation. Within 48 hours, Serbia refused, as it perceived this ultimatum and acceptance of Austrian demands as violation of her own sovereignty. When Austria started mobilizing its troops, Russia, which was supportive of people of Serbia, race warned Austria to desist from launching a war against Serbia, and when Austria refused, Russia declared a war on Austria. Germany sent an ultimatum to Russia as Austria was one of its alliance partners, and upon Russia's refusal, Germany declared war on Russia. Because Russia was also in double alliance with France, so France too had to enter in the fray. In the end, Great Britain, which had remained by the neutral government, offended by Germans when the latter demanded free passage through Belgium of German army, as Belgium was declared a neutral territory by continuation of leading European countries, to which Russia was also a part, taking it as violation of international convention. Great Britain also jumped into the war. In 1917, the American president Woodrow Wilson, in his speech to the Congress, presented a draft for the peace settlement of the warring European countries. This peace proposal came to be called as Wilson's 14 points. Some of the major features of the Wilson 14 points. First point, abolition of the system of secret treaties and establishment of open convention. Second, freedom of the seas. Third, removal of the economic barriers to the international trade. Fourth, reduction of armament. Fifth, impartial adjustment of all colonial claims in the interest of the subject people. Sixth, national self-determination. Seventh, establishment of League of Nations for the guarantee of political independence and territorial integrity of all nations, big or small. The remaining points of Wilson's 14 points concerned with the rectification of boundaries and creation of new states on the principle of nationality. It also demanded that Germany must evacuate all territories forcibly acquired by it. The Paris settlement in 1919 was dominated by the Big Four, that is, the Lloyd George of Great Britain, Clemenceau of France, Woodrow Wilson of America, and Orlando of Italian representative. The negotiation continued from January to June 1919. In the course of the negotiation, Orlando developed serious differences and he left the Congress. In the end of the Paris settlement reduced a set of 5 treaties: the Treaty of Versailles, which dealt Germany; the Treaty of Saint-Germain, which dealt Austria; the Treaty of Trianon, which dealt Hungary; the Treaty of Neuilly, which held Bulgaria; and finally the Treaty of Sevres, to deal with Turkey. Treaty of Versailles. The treaty document was divided into 15 parts and contained 440 articles. The first part provided for creation of a new covenant to be called as the League of Nations. Germany was not allowed to join till 1926. Part 2 delimited the territory of Germany, which was given to countries like Belgium, France, received Alsace, Lorraine, Poland, Lithuania, and Denmark. Part 3 of the treaty separated a very important coalfield of Germany, Saar, from Germany, for 15 years to be kept under the French supervision, and provided for the strict demilitarization of Germany. For instance, German army not to comprise of men exceeding 1 lakh persons. The army could have maximum of 7 infantry and 3 cavalry divisions, not more than 3 military training schools, abolition of military conscription, abolition of paramilitary force, etc. Part 4 of the treaty stripped Germany of all her colonial possessions. All colonies of Germany were given to the Allied powers under the mandate system. Part 5 prohibited Germany from possessing certain type of weapons and effected a heavy reduction in German weaponry, although the treaty also provided reduction in armament to alliance powers too. Part 6. Germany was to pay huge sums of money as war indemnity to compensate the losses suffered by the Allied powers due to a war caused by Germany. This provided for establishment of reparation committee in 1921 to assess the actual damage of the Allied powers, but in interim it fixed a sum of equivalent of 20 billion gold marks, which was equivalent to 5 billion pounds in the form of gold, ships, or securities. Numerous other financial obligations. The government of Germany signed the Treaty of Versailles under the protest. The right-wing German parties attacked this treaty as a betrayal. Terrorists assassinated several politicians in Germany, whom they considered responsible for such humiliation of country. The German Emperor Kaiser fled before the conclusion of country. The treaty was signed by Weimar Republic. The US Senate refused to sign the treaty and took no responsibility for most of its provisions. France and Belgium tried to implement the treaty provisions in the strictest possible sense but were softened under joint Anglo-American pressure. The government of Germany agreed to pay repatriation under Davis Plan and Young Plan, but due to economic depression, the repatriation payment was cancelled in 1932, and in 1935, one gentleman, Adolf Hitler, denounced the entire treaty altogether, meaning thereby Germany under his leadership not obliged to accept the Treaty of Versailles.